Good day, students. How are you doing? I hope you are enjoying your stay at home. So today we are into a new lesson called Nigerian Constitutional Development. That is the constitutional development of Nigeria. Now, you all understand that no society will live without some set of rules and regulations. So now, this rule and regulation guides how the citizens should conduct their behaviors or affairs in a society. At the same time, it regulates how the society should handle the affairs of its citizens. It could be a society, an association, a group, an institution. This can never run without some rules and regulation. So now these rules and regulations are always contained in a document. This document is called a constitution. In other words, a constitution is a set of rules and regulations that governs the affairs of citizens and society. Or it's a document that contains rules and regulations that regulates how the society should operate. So in the history of Nigeria, there are a series of constitutional development ranging from colonial periods up to now that we obtain our independence. So we can divide the constitution development or structure of Nigeria into three spaces. First is the constitutions that operate in Nigeria during colonial administration. In other words, pre-independent constitution. That is colonial constitution. Then we also have the constitution that Nigeria operates during independence. We call it independent constitution. Independent constitution. Then we also have a constitution that Nigeria adopts or operates after independence. We call it post-independent constitution or post-colonial constitution. Independent constitution. So these are the series of the stages of Nigerian constitutional development. But the one that is of concern to us now is the colonial constitution. That is the constitutions, or series of constitutions that were in operation during colonial administration. So this is our point of concern now. This is what we are going to concentrate on. So this colonial constitution are of four major types. There are four major types of constitution that operate during colonial administration. One, we have Clifford's Constitution of 1922. We have Richard's Constitution of 1946. We have Macpherson's Constitution of 1951. And lastly, we have the Lytton Constitution of 1954. So today, the topics we are going to deal with is the Clifford's Constitution of 1922. Clifford's Constitution of 1922. Now, under this Clifford Constitution of 1922, we are going to look at three things in this constitution. One, what is the background of the constitution, the basis of the constitution? Two, the features of the constitution. And three, merit and demerit of the constitution. So these are what we are going to look into. Background of the constitution, background of Clifford's Constitution, features of Clifford's Constitution, then merits and demerits of Clifford's Constitution. So, on the background of Clifford Constitution, what I'm trying to say here is that what motivates Clifford to come out with a new constitution? What is a guiding factor or force for him to come out with a constitution to replace the existing constitution at that time? Before his constitution, there was the 1942 constitution of Lord Frederick Lugard that was in operation, but certain things forced him to amend that constitution and to come up with a constitution that was named after him. So this is what we are going to look into. Now, the Lugard Constitution has what we call the Nigerian Council. This Nigerian Council comprises of only Europeans who were saddled with the responsibility of controlling the affairs of Nigerians. I said it comprises of only Europeans. Now, the Nigerian Council has the Legislative Council and the Executive Council altogether. So this council perform all the functions of the three arms of government. But it will surprise you to understand or to know that no Nigerian is involved in running the affairs of the country. So when Nigerians, and especially educated elite, started complaining of the manner in which they are excluded in running the affairs of the society, Clifford, as the Governor General at that time, decided to amend the existing constitution so that he will correct the anomalies of Lord Lugard's constitution, hence his constitution, the Clifford Constitution. So now, what is the nature of the Clifford Constitution? What did he introduce that is different from the Lugard's Constitution? So we are going to look into this. It's still within the background of his constitution. Now, the first thing he did is he replaced the existing Nigerian Council with what we call the elective principles. He replaced it with what we call the Nigerian elective principle, or legislative principle, elective principle. Now, what's the difference between legislative principle and executive principle? Now, the Legislative Council is the organs of the body that is charged with the responsibility of making rules and regulations in the society. Though, whatever laws they make is subject to the approval of the Governor General. The Governor General still has the veto power. He can overrule or he can accept. Then the Executive Council is saddled with the responsibility of executing the policies of the colonial administration at that time. So the structure and background of his constitution is, first of all, he introduced what we call the Legislative Council and then the Executive Council to replace the Nigerian Council of Lord Frederick Lugard. Now, what is the nature of this Legislative Council? How is the membership of the council? Now, excuse me, the Legislative Council has 46 members. The Legislative Council has 46 members. Now, of these 46 members, we have 27 that are called official. Now, official in the sense that they are purely government workers who are members of the Legislative Council. Now, out of this, then we have 19 are called unofficial, either unofficial or ex officio. Now, out of these 19 unofficial, we have 10 Nigerians. Out of these 19, 10 are Nigerians, and the remaining 9 are non-Nigerians. Now, of these 10 Nigerians, 4 were elected. Yeah, so like I was saying, out of the 10 out of the 19 were Nigerian, and out of the 10 Nigerian, 4 were elected. 4 contested election, and they were elected into the Legislative Council. Now, these 4 that were elected, 3 represented Lagos and 1 from Calabar, and the remaining 6 were appointed by the Governor General. So this was, again, the total just nature of the Clifford Constitution. So now we are going to look at the features of Clifford Constitution. Features of Clifford Constitution. Features of Clifford's Constitution. Now, how did the Constitution look like? What are the components of the Constitution? The Constitution has several features, one of which is the introduction of elective principle. Introduction of elective principle. Now, the Constitution introduced elective principle. This elective principle allowed for the first time Nigerians to elect their desired representative who will represent them and protect their interests in the Legislative Council. Unlike in the Nigerian Council of Lugard, there are no Nigerians in the council. So, in the Clifford Constitution, they introduced the elective principle, which give room for the establishment of political parties that will allow Nigerians to contest under their platforms and be elected into the Legislative Council. But this elective principle has a limitation. Participation in election or political affairs or activities is only limited to residents of Nigerians who reside in Nigeria more than a year and whose annual income is at least 100 British pounds, which is a huge money at that time. So only male adults who are residents in Nigeria at least for 12 months and whose annual income is not less than 100 British pounds. So this is one feature of the Constitution. And another feature of the Constitution is that all colonial governors to report directly to Secretary of State for Colonies. Now, all colonial governors were directly to report to the Secretary of State for Colonies. He is a cabinet minister in Britain. So he is the minister that's in charge for all colonies, British colonies, or colonies within British territory. So all governors are directed to report to him. That was the provision of the new constitution. Then, the northern region was excluded from the Legislative Council. The Legislative Council concentrates only on the Southern Protectorate, but the Northern Protectorate was excluded from it. How was then, if the Northern Protectorate was not covered by the Constitution, how was this ruled? It was ruled by the proclamation of the governor, colonial governor. You understand that at the whole of the country, the whole country is headed by a governor general. Now, the country is divided into protectorates. That is territories under protections. So now these protectorates were headed by a governor. So these governors ruled the protectorates by simple proclamations. So that is one. Then there was also the introduction of the Executive Council. This Executive Council was ruled strictly by Europeans. Now, the Executive Council performed the responsibility of implementing most of the colonial policies. So there is the existence of a colonial Executive Council, and this Executive Council was headed by colonial. Like also we said, there also the existence of Legislative Council, who comprises of 46 members, and of these 46, 27 were official and 19 were unofficial. And out of these 19 unofficial, 10 were Nigerians, and the unofficial, ex-official, were non-Europeans. That is what. Then, yes, we also say that the Constitution creates elective principle, and this elective principle gives rise to allow people to vote. And you cannot vote without the existence of political parties. So this principle also introduced political parties, under which platform Nigerians contest election. And the first political party to be introduced was the Nigerian National Democratic Party in 1923 by a renowned nationalist, Herbert Macaulay. So then, apart from that, there was also the existence of a newspaper called the West African Pilot. So these are the features of the Constitution. So now, I'm going to look into the advantages of the Constitution and disadvantages of the Constitution. Because in whatever situation, there are good things we pick from the Constitution, and then there are things that are to be rejected from the Constitution. So what are the merits and demerits of the Constitution? Well, one good example of the Constitution, or one good benefit of the Constitution, is the introduction of elective principle. Merits of Clifford's Constitution. One, introduction or establishment of elective principle. Elective principle. So, and I explained to you that this elective principle is what gave rise to, or give Nigerians the opportunity to elect their desired leaders of their choice, who will represent them and protect their interests in the governing council of colonial administration. That is one. Two, establishment of political parties. Formation of political parties. Now, this constitution also allowed for the formation of political parties, under which platform Nigerians contest election and won election. Like I told you earlier, 3 people contested under Lagos, win from Lagos, and then 3 people represent the Calabar. So they are 4 people, and they contested under a political party's platform. So this is another good advantage of the Constitution. Then the Constitution also creates the Legislative Council. Creation of Legislative Council. Now, this Legislative Council, like we say, they are the people that are charged with the responsibility of making laws in the society. This Legislative Council have 46 members that are serve as lawmakers. Out of these 46 members, like I said, 27 are official members. Official here means that they are actually government workers. Then we have 19 that are unofficial, or in other words, ex-official. Now, ex-official in the sense that they are not government workers. They are not career government workers. And out of these 19, 10 were actually indigenous Nigerians. So look at it, 36 were non-Nigerians, foreigners, and only 10 that were Nigerian. So this is another example, a good advantage of the Constitution. Then the Constitution awakens nationalism. It makes Nigerians to believe that, okay, so they can even stand and represent their people. It gave them this sense of love and feelings for their country. So it awakened the nationalistic spirit. And it gave room for more agitation and for more representation of the people in governance. Then it allowed for the establishment of a newspaper called the West African Pilot. So these few are the examples of the merits of the Constitution. Then the Constitution also have weaknesses or defaults or disadvantages or demerits, as in whichever one you call it. So what are the disadvantages of this Constitution? What are the weaknesses of Clifford Constitution? One, it promotes sectionalism. The merit of Clifford's Constitution. One, promotes sectionalism. Sectionalism in what sense? In what way did the Constitution promote sectionalism? Like I said, in the nature of the feature of the Constitution, the Legislative Council only comprises of members of the South. The North was excluded. And I told you that the North was ruled by a simple governor's proclamation. So that means there is sectionalism there. A section of the country was more favored than another. So this creates kind of ill feeling from the people that belongs to a section that was excluded. Then that is one. Two, the Legislative Council was dominated by whites. Legislative Council dominated by Europeans. Now, there are 46 members of Legislative Council. Out of these 46 members, 36 were Europeans, only 10 were Nigerian. So the Legislative Council was dominated by the Europeans. So this also have a kind of misrepresentation, because one, even if there will be vote casting, the majority carry the votes. Just like the way, if you remember how it's happened in the National Assembly. Those against say aye, against, those in support say aye, against say nay. Bam, the ayes have it. Now, if that kind of votes will be thrown to the House, considering the fact that the majority of the members are Europeans, of course, the majority will always carry the vote. So there was still issue there. So it was dominated by the Europeans. Then another one is there's partial representation. Partial representation. What do I mean by partial representation? Now, the elective principle did not give enough opportunity for people to participate. That is one. Two, majority of people that qualified to to participate in political affairs are excluded. There was what we call disenfranchisement, because it only allows male adults who are resident in Nigeria of not less than 12 months and whose annual income is not less than 100 British pounds, which is a huge amount of money at that time. Only few people will meet up. So many people were excluded, and more qualified people that could have represented the interests of the people were excluded simply because of the provisions of the Constitution. So this allowed for a partial representation. So it is a very strong weakness of the Constitution. And then the Governor General was given absolute power to veto whatever decision taken by both the Executive Council and the Legislative Council. So whatever decision they come up with is subject to the approval of the Governor General. So that is also a weakness of the Constitution. And then even the elective principle, so there was partial representation because the elective principle that was introduced covers only the Legislative Council, but it did not involve the Executive Council. So the executive body that is charged with the responsibility of implementing government policies is purely white. So there was no room for somebody to be elected into the council. So it was a partial representation. And then the people also claim that the Constitution was imposed on them. Imposition of the Constitution. Imposition of the Constitution. Now, the Constitution was imposed on the people. They were not consulted. They only simply heard of the complaints of the people, and then they came up with the Constitution just the way they wanted. So it was imposed on the people. So that is also another weakness of the Constitution. So this is where I will stop these lessons. I believe we covered some. We started with refreshing our mind on even what the Constitution is, that the need for rules and regulation in the society. We also discussed the stages of a series of constitutional development that took place. We categorized it into three: the pre-independent constitution or colonial constitution, the independent constitution, and the post-independent constitution. So now, out of this, we focus our attention on the colonial constitution. And this colonial constitution, we say there are four major constitutions that were in operation during colonial administration. The first one was the Clifford Constitution of 1922. The second one was the Richards Constitution of 1946. Then we have the MacPherson's Constitution of 1951. And then we now have the Liechtenstein Constitution of 1954. So our focus today was on Clifford's Constitution. We discussed the background of Clifford Constitution, what necessitated Clifford to come up with his Constitution. We looked into how the Constitution looked like. Then we discussed the features of the Constitutions. The Constitution introduced elective principle, Legislative Council, Executive Council. We also look into the advantage of the Constitution, that it allows for participation in politics through the introduction of the elective principle, though very limited. We also look at the introduction of political parties who allow people to contest election under the very platform. And we discussed the disadvantages of the Constitution. We say the Constitution introduced sectionalism, that the Constitution excluded some part of the country or some protectorate from the Legislative Council, and this creates some kind of bad feelings among the people. We also say the Constitution was imposed on the people, and we also discuss that the Constitution is a partial representation, that the elective principle introduced only favored the Legislative Council, but not the Executive Council. So with this, we've come to the end of the lesson. Please go read your notes and go through it very well and answer the questions. If you have any other question, you can still contact me on the channels that the notes reach to you. Thank you and have a wonderful day.